You refer to the brain state that you're in when you're seeing a red thing. Call that brain state R. That's the way somebody's brain is when they see a red tomato. Okay? There's a brain seeing the red tomato. R is a description of the way the brain is when it sees a red tomato. Mary could tell more than anybody else in the whole world because she was the world expert on color and color vision. She knew before she saw the red tomato that brain state R was the brain state that you're in when you see a red tomato. She could describe it in ever so much detail, right? But the one thing she hadn't yet done is put herself in brain state R, right? So she did lack that ability. But of course, lacking that ability doesn't amount to a kind of ignorance on her part. I mean, she just can't, she knows everything about the brain state, she's just not able to put herself in it.
Aren't you saying that not having been in brain state R constitutes ignorance about what the color red is actually like?
Yes. Premise 2 of the argument says that Mary, suppose she anticipates herself seeing the tomato, she can describe in perfect detail the brain state that she'll be in using the language of science. There's something that she doesn't know. There's something she's ignorant of. And that's what it's like to see a red tomato.
If there's something she's ignorant of, like, you could give a practical test where it's like, put yourself in brain state R. This is a test on color vision.
She can't put herself in brain state R, no. But just to be clear, there is definitely something she can't do. In fact, there are many things that she can't do prior to seeing the red tomato. One of them is like, imagine what it's like to see a red tomato. She can't do that. Nor can she, for example, if you suddenly came in and put a red tomato and a green tomato in front of her and said, which is the red one and which is the green one? She wouldn't be able to tell you which is the red one and which is the green one, right?
Are you sure? Like,
it's kind of a thought experiment. So
you could use like, if she needed to, she could make like a diffraction grating. And
of course, sorry, absolutely. I'm sure if you gave her a bunch of like scientific equipment, or you just gave her a colleague and she could ask the colleague. Yeah, of course, if you gave her the right equipment, she could. But if you just put them right in front of her and said, Mary, right, for the first time, one of these is, I don't know, one of them is a specially bred blue tomato, right? One of these is the red one and one of these is the blue one. Which is which? Right? And she doesn't have time to use her diffraction grating or ask her colleague or chop it up and analyze the whatever. She's just asked. She'll be like, I don't know. So it's certainly true that she lacks a bunch of abilities before she sees the red tomato for the first time. But the claim is, nonetheless, she knows everything about color vision that can be described in the language of science, because there's no scientific question that she can't answer. Yeah?
The only thing that seems to be saying is that the human brain itself is limited, not that there's necessarily something new about the experience. It's saying that Mary can't on the fly say, okay, I'm in brain state R or I'm in brain state B from looking at something red or something blue, and then saying, okay, that means it's red. Our brains don't work like that. But that doesn't necessarily, I conceive of a brain that does work like that.
So yes, we can imagine like Super Mary, who never needed to be shown a red thing, because whenever a brain state is described to her, or whenever she describes a brain state, she has the ability to just put herself in that brain state. Yeah, that would be a different thought experiment. But this thought experiment concerns merely, I mean, she's pretty super, this Mary, I should just point out, because she knows everything that science can ever, future, past, present science will ever tell us about redness. So she's pretty super. She's not that super. But our merely sort of science omniscient Mary here, right? She doesn't have that ability. But that's fine. We only need, the argument is framed in terms of merely science omniscient Mary, not the kind of Mary who's able to simulate brain states just on the description of them. It sounds like you're all kind of acquiescing to Jackson's argument, yeah.
I think a lot of it depends on where you define the difference between knowledge and experience. Because her experiencing the color red doesn't change the understanding that, you know, the color red did this with my brain. It, you know, caused brain state R. And I mean, this is something that she knows and that it doesn't change when she sees it. Therefore, the knowledge of it won't change. She'll only gain experience. But if you consider experience like that to be knowledge, then, I mean, where do you define knowledge?
So she definitely has a new experience. So what you're disputing here is you're saying, yeah, look, I concede that Mary has a new experience, right? She never had an experience like that before. But what you're disputing here is you're saying premise 2 is wrong. She doesn't come to know something new, right? It seems to me like she has a new experience, but she doesn't know anything that she didn't know before. I'm Mary, right? I've seen it. I go, wow. I go, now I know what it's like to see red. What was the mistake I made?
That you said no. It's now.
What did I think? Why did it seem to me like something I know now? That's what it's like to see red.
Now
Why
I've
did it seem to me? Put yourself in her position. Aren't you going to think that? That's something I know now. I didn't know it before. Now I know it.
While you may think that, the truth is all you really should be saying is that I have experienced brain state R.
I see. So she should be much more neutral about that.
Because she hadn't formally been like probed by electrodes, she doesn't she doesn't know what brain state. She hasn't experienced brain state R, but she knows everything about brain state R.
Yeah.
So she still knows it, but now she's experienced it.
I see. So in reality, if you were one of the scientists and I'm Mary and I say, I now know what it's like to see red. You say, sorry. No, you're just having a new experience. There's nothing you know that you didn't know before. Strictly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, good.
I would argue that she didn't have full scientific knowledge of
Right. Interesting.
of red because, like, I feel like she had a hypothesis about what red is, but she never performed any sort of experiment to test that hypothesis. So, like, you said she wouldn't be able to identify a red tomato, and part of truly knowing, like, something in science would be able to, like, apply that to observations, and she's never been able to, like, look at an exit sign and say that's red. So she doesn't actually know entirely what it is. She doesn't have anything to, like, test her knowledge. And so then when she sees it, now she's actually finally conducted an experiment on her hypothesis of what it means to be red, and now she has scientific knowledge about what it means to be red.
I see. So your thought is that even though beforehand she has all the knowledge that you need to answer test questions about framed in the language of science, about redness. So even though she kind of, so talks to her on the phone, and she's going to seem to you like, my gosh, this is the world expert on redness, right? There's a kind of knowledge that she lacks, which we all agree on, right? Because she doesn't, for example, know how to distinguish red things and blue things by sight immediately, although she could given the phase spectrometer, whatever. You're thinking that the kind of ignorance that she has is actually scientific ignorance?
In part, yes.
So are you disputing premise 1?
I'm disputing premise.
You're saying prior to seeing the tomato, it's not the case that she knows all features of color experience that can be described in the language of the natural sciences. What is it she doesn't know? She doesn't know, because she doesn't know how to. Is that a feature of color experience that can be described in the language of the natural sciences?
When you, like, take data, not everything is quantitative. You have to have qualitative things like observations, and, like, if you're, like, conducting a chemistry experiment, you write down, like, colors you see. And if she can't do that, she's not, like, fully using, like, scientific knowledge.
Yeah, so there's certainly a sense in which Mary isn't going to make a very good scientist, right? At least immediately. Maybe she's trying to perform an experiment, putting red and blue cards in front of someone, right? She's not going to know which card to put in front of the subject. So she's going to be kind of an inept scientist. The issue is whether that ineptitude is best understood as ignorance of a feature that can be described in the language of sciences. Because Jackson's going to say it's not. Yeah, she's inept. There's lots of things she doesn't know how to do, right? But she does know everything that can be described in the language of science.
I think one possible thing that she might know from science that would give her this information is that there can be, she can look at the brain state of what somebody's like when they go, that's what red is. And then there are things like, that could be simulated. She could analyze the distinction between that brain state and other brain states. And when she sees a red thing for the first time, she could go, I'm now experiencing this for the first time, but because of the analysis I've performed already, I already knew what it was like to see red.
I see. So because I already knew that being in brain state R was what happened to a brain when it was put in front of a red thing, I'm now coming to know this it's something like, I already knew this. But why does it seem to her like she's coming to know something new?
No, it seems to you like if you were in her position, you'd come to know something new because none of us have ever analyzed the brain state that way.
I see. So if we were just able to give a complete enough analysis of brain state R, then we wouldn't be at all surprised when we were first confronted with the red thing. That's a bold hypothesis. Okay, good. We're going to look at similar bold hypotheses next time.